This is Just in Case of American Newscape, joining our friend and mentor, David Bruce Smith. He is the founder and president of the Grateful American Foundation, an organization dedicated to restoring enthusiasm in American history for kids and adults. David is also the co-founder of the Grateful American Book Prize. Today, David has invited acclaimed author Sharon Robinson to share a glimpse into her book, Child of a Dream. Welcome back, David. Greetings, Sharon. Welcome to American Newscape.
Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you for having us.
Hey, let's kick this off. Could you please give us an overview of the Grateful American Foundation and the Grateful American Book Prize, David?
Okay, so they happened at two different times. In 2011, I was listening to NPR in the car, and I heard that the American Revolutionary Museum had done a survey and about American history. And the results were 89% of the participants believed that the Revolutionary War took place after the Civil War. Well, that really shocked me. And I decided, well, maybe there was some little piece I could contribute to educate people, historically speaking. So 3 years later, I started the Grateful American Foundation. I concentrated on the antebellum to Reconstruction period, about 1850 to 1877, because I was going to, the Founding Father home, so that's before. But I was going to the Founding Father and Mother homes, and I was interviewing authors who wrote primarily about my selected time period, and doing podcasts, lots of podcasts. But I discovered that if you don't have a machine, they don't get seen. I mean, it's just impossible to get them out there. So a friend of mine who was had been head of the National Endowment for the Humanities suggested I create a book prize. So that's how it started.
Well, how cool is that? Now,
That's fascinating. Yeah.
Sharon, let me congratulate you for winning this prestigious literary award and thank you for this must-read book. And I have to state right now, I love this book. This book is The Child of the Dream. Could you please share your thoughts on this masterpiece?
Well, thank you. It was important for me to tell this story. I'd wanted to tell it for many years, and kind of got fed into my request with Scholastic on which book I would do next. And the reason why it was important to me was I felt that kids. I worked for years with kids on finding their voice, both as a nurse midwife working with adolescent girls, and then in the past 25 years with the work with Major League Baseball and Scholastic in schools, helping kids find their voice and develop self-esteem. So I felt that this turning point in my life was this 1963. It was also a turning point in the civil rights movement. And I wanted to pair the two and reach kids and tell them that I too had to develop my voice. It doesn't develop my self-confidence. It doesn't just happen overnight, and it's constantly evolving. And I just felt the strength and the courage of the children in Birmingham in 1963 was an example of kids who were willing to lift their voice and go to jail or face the police or whatever it would take in order to make change in America. And that was always an inspiration for me, and I wanted to share that with kids in a way that was personal and sensitive, and mixed in with what it's like to turn 13. And David, I listened to you talk about kids not knowing history. So in my book tour last year, I went across the country, but I was in Colorado and in Boulder, and I was at a library in a school. Kids were in grades fourth and fifth grade, and it was a great time, mostly white kids. And at the end, the last question was a little boy way in the back of the room, and he was a fifth grader. And he stood up very, I mean, it took a lot of courage for this boy because he stood up from way in the back of the room and asked me, how did African Americans get to America? And I was like, wow. And I had been sort of complaining because I felt like I was on this tour, and I was like, wish they had taken in Colorado, and I wish they had taken me to schools that had more, that were more integrated, more black children, more brown children. And then I realized, like, oh my God, that's, all kids need a voice and need to hear from diversity. So I stood there and gave this boy this very quick lesson on slave trade, slavery in America, the building of America using slaves, and how today black people come from all over the world. So it turned out to be a really good thing for this little boy and for his class to hear. And I was thankful because you don't realize what kids don't know until they share it with us.
Sharon, when the book came in, the title is an automatic metaphor. I knew Martin Luther King was in it. Even though 63, he was assassinated in 68, I knew that he had to be a major ingredient. I didn't know I didn't know how much his presence was. I mean, he has a presence even in absence, but it was a giveaway that he was going to be, because I remember I was a little boy when he was assassinated. It was April 4th, 1968, and the 6 o'clock news came on, and it said Martin Luther King assassinated in Memphis. And I went downstairs for dinner, and I said to my parents, I said, "Who is Martin Luther King?" And they explained it. And certain things just make an indelible impression.
Absolutely.
So the dream to me was your dream, but also I have a dream speech. At least that's how I interpreted it.
Well,
absolutely. Go ahead.
No. This book is a beautiful tribute to that time. At least to the better parts of humanity of that time. What struck me about the book, I knew who Sharon's dad was. When I was a boy, he was an idol, and he still remains an idol to me. And he was an idol to me because what he did on the baseball field. And as I read the book, let me state, I was so much, the idea of what he did with civil rights was remarkable, but what really touched me was how you and your mother, or how he and your mother raised your family.
Yes.
And what remarkable people. And without this book, I would have never had a sense of that.
Oh, so important.
David?
Oh, sorry. I was going to say, I had no idea your father had anything to do with civil rights. The funny part was the chock full of nuts, because I remember on Madison Avenue, you could go to chock full of nuts. That's gone. But I had no idea. To me, I knew him as a baseball player. Baseball player. I had no idea he had done all these other wonderful things. So it's nice. It makes him three-dimensional.
Absolutely, yes. That was very important to me. I've worked for Major League Baseball for, like I said, 25 years, and people keep asking me about the baseball years, and I say, well, actually, I was too young to remember. I was 6 when my father played his last game, and 7 when he retired from Major League Baseball. I said I grew up with him and the civil rights movement, and him as an activist. and a writer, and so all of that's the Jackie Robinson I really knew. And it was fun to be able to share that with people because so many people think of him just as a baseball player, instead of understanding, even going prior to baseball, he was already an activist. Having been court-martialed in the army for refusing to go to the back of the bus way before. Um,
Rosa
oh
Parks?
gosh, I forgot her
Rosa
name. Brain.
Parks.
Yes, Rosa Parks. Oh
Rosa
gosh, I
Parks.
apologize. It went away for 1 second. Before Rosa Parks, and even as a child, when his mother moved them into a neighborhood that was redlined, and they did not allow blacks to purchase homes in that community, my grandmother found a way around it, and then my father and his brothers and sister had to deal with the aftermath of people not being happy that they had moved into this white neighborhood, secretly moved a black family into this neighborhood. So, his activism was the person that I knew most, and the person that I loved and I learned from. But I really did think my parents did a remarkable job at raising us to my brothers and I to care about the world. And I wanted to share that with not only other kids, but also other parents as they're right now trying to figure out how they can help their children today deal with the realities of race and climate, and whatever their issues, violence in the country. So all of that, again, it requires a certain kind of parenting, and a parenting that is talks to their children and shares stories and finds a way for the family to invest in change.
And they seem so united. That's what's so appealing.
They were, you know what, you're absolutely right, that they were totally united. There were times when they were not united. My dad was the nothing I could do with my dad was wrong, and so there were times when dad and I were on one page, and mom was like, "Oh, no, no, you will not go to that X-ray technician school. You're going to college." So if I was trying to find an easier way out when I was going through my rebellious teens, it was my mom that brought me back into reality. But they were a great pair, a great partner, and that's why they were successful integrating baseball and the effects of that, but also helping to raise my brother and I.
Well, what a blessing your mom is still with us. When I say us, with humanity, I mean, and she was a remarkable woman. The part about the book
And she
where,
is.
yeah, well, exactly. The part about the book where she took you to the Lincoln Memorial, that touched me
Yeah,
so much. Let me get you there early, Sharon. And
absolutely.
what a heartwarming book.
Thank you. But that's, again, the importance of preparation. We couldn't get a dog in our house without studying all types of dogs and really knowing what we were going to get. And that's what's helped me to be a writer too, and to love research, because my mom insisted upon it when we were little.
What was her educational background, Sharon?
Oh, she has a undergraduate degree from UCLA in nursing, and then a graduate degree in nursing from NYU. So my mom was a psychiatric nurse, and she did her undergraduate work prior to marrying my dad, and then she stayed home with us while he was playing baseball and until we were all in school, and then she went back and got her master's degree and did really remarkable work in with groups. It was kind of a period in psychiatry when things were changing. They were moving from the inpatient facilities to outpatient and community based, and organizational development was so important during that time. So my mother, was right in the profession during this time, and she used
I
it
bet.
when she later on in her life, she used it to help develop the Jackie Robinson Foundation. All of that plays out. You don't. We we're not stuck in one career because we really are learning skills, and she used it the rest of her life in whatever she was doing.
I bet you she was great with family dynamics and people didn't even know.
Yeah, it's, family dynamics are hard.
Well, of course.
But she
You
did a
know,
great job.
and I don't want to give away this book. And, I don't want to, I want people to understand that I love this book to almost an embarrassing level. But
Oh.
the people of the 60s that thought they were really cool, they
Mm-hmm.
wear it as a badge of courage, went to Woodstock. But to me, the cool people went to the jazz festival at your house.
Oh yeah, those were amazing. That was the way my parents, ultimately we were asking my dad to take us to Birmingham and let us march. We wanted to be a part of the larger movement. We were integrating our schools in Stamford, Connecticut, but we wanted to be part of the larger movement. And
Mhm.
he kept putting us off, and finally they came up with this amazing solution. And how the whole family could be involved, one through going to the March on Washington and also by having these jazz concerts at our home. It was, incredible um, legacy, which we continued long after my dad died.
Yeah, that meant a lot to me. I actually had a chance to meet Dizzy Gillespie. Oops, I gave
I
away
did.
something else in the book, and had a chance to sit in with him when I was a college musician. But what a remarkable passage, and it just amazes me. And the other thing that struck me is, would I have had that courage as a parent? They gave you this wonderful opportunity to be involved. They kept you on point, kept you informed. I don't think um, they didn't paint a rosy picture of anything for you. They really tried to define what was going on to all you kids so you could
Hmm.
comprehend it and come to your own place with it. And
Right.
then you rise to the occasion as a 13-year-old. I don't know what David was doing at 13, but let's say I was doing less than nothing for the world. And I believe you did a lot for the world when you were 13. The dynamic of you emotionally supporting what your parents were doing, if you stop to think about
Hmm.
it.
Hmm.
But you were challenged in very, very concrete ways as a 13-year
Hmm.
old. I mean, uh, unlike, say, me, I mean, I wasn't, I might have been dealing with teenage angst, but I wasn't dealing with, racism or exclusion or I don't want you to be in this house because you're black. I mean, those are real life problems.
Hmm.
Um, what I dealt with were phases, developmental phases. So I
Hmm.
think it was a lot harder for you. But I just want to say one thing about that relates to that about the Grateful American Book Prize. When I
Hmm.
decided to do when my friend Bruce Cole and I decided to do the book prize, um, I wanted I wanted to concentrate on historic fiction and nonfiction for seventh to ninth graders. Now, the reason
Hmm.
for that was seventh to ninth grade is a very traumatic period, socially, hormonally,
Hmm.
psychologically, for almost everyone. And I
Hmm.
think that if an adolescent does not want to get help, then books can be akin to a paper psychiatrist.
Hmm. I agree
And
with you.
so that was the reason, the driver.
And yeah, no, I know when John called me actually first to tell me about this award, I was so blown away because, getting history out to kids is so important to me, and to actually have an award that recognizes that. And that's how when I was growing up, I didn't love history. I loved living history, and I loved being a part of the current climate, but I didn't love learning dates and wars and when they battles and all of that. So as an adult, I've learned to love history through books. And I have a variety of authors that I like to read, but you will see that many of them weave history, and I'm talking about global history, into their stories, and I mean so much to me.
So here's how you can get around that. How a kid can get around that. Now, I like dates and stuff like that, so I'm a little odd in that way. And I always,
Okay.
Is that
Bios,
I,
probably.
I always, I always had great history teachers. And then
Oh, that's wonderful.
in 12th grade, 11th grade, I wanted to take a course with this ex-history teacher, and it was closed out because she was so popular. So when I was in
Mm,
12th grade, I got in because I was a senior. It was
okay.
called Far East Affairs, and I hated it. I just hated it. It's the only history class I ever took that I hated.
Mm,
So halfway
okay.
through the semester, her name was Mrs. Hendry. She
Mm,
called me up in front of the class and she said, David, come to my desk. And I thought, oh, jeez. She said, you know what the problem is here? You have the wrong attitude about this course. History is his story. It's just
mm.
one big gossip session. End of problem.
That's great. So did
Yeah.
you change your attitude the second half of the semester?
That was it.
And
No more
you
problem.
no more problems. Okay.
No more problem with, I mean, she jolted me into place
Okay.
because what she
Well,
said made sense.
yes.
Sometimes you have those, I guess we call them aha moments now, and that
Hmm.
was one of them. Seriously, I've never forgotten that.
Oh,
When
wow.
people
Teachers
don't,
make a difference.
good and bad. People don't realize,
Hmm.
what do David and Justin talk about when they are not on camera? Well, we talk about history
Hmm.
because we both have this passion for history, but we both grew up
Okay.
differently, so we both have a dramatically different perspective of history. And we don't
Hmm.
debate, but the way we talk is like a couple college students going, "Well, did you realize? Did you realize? Did you realize? Did you realize?" And see that there's a
Hmm.
passion there and a love there, and it's probably why we
Hmm.
both have a sincere appreciation for what you did. Um,
Hmm. Thank you.
it's just it just blows my simpleton mind that
Mm.
you put this together. And I remember while I was going through the book thinking, how many journals, how many diaries
Mm.
did this young lady keep? But
Hmm.
when the what I never enjoyed acknowledgments of the book, but what a beautiful way you detailed that and how you
Mm.
thanked your
Oh,
friends.
yep.
That was remarkable in itself.
Oh,
So
great.
I
um,
wish you'd do another year like 1968. This is the
Oh.
memoir of 63. I wish you'd do 68.
Well, even my niece was saying the same thing. She said, "You left us hanging. I want to know what, have another
Because
period." But
it would be Martin
yeah,
Luther
thank you.
King, Robert Kennedy.
Yeah. Oh my God.
You
That
know,
was yeah.
when you say, I think you begin the book by saying, the night before you turned 13, or the day after you
The-
turned 13, uh, George Wallace made his segregation now, segregation tomorrow, segregation today, tomorrow, forever thing. And I remember, because so that made me think, when he ran for president in
Mhm.
1968, he ran with a
Mhm.
horrible person by the name of Curtis LeMay.
Mhm.
And then in 1972, when my mother, she picked me up from school, the Maryland, it was May 16th, 1972. It was the Maryland primary. Wallace won in Maryland. There was an attempted assassination that day also on his
Mhm.
life. But
Mhm.
all these things came back when I read that introduction, not the introduction, the
Mhm.
first chapter. Because
Mhm.
last year when I was in Montgomery, I said, I'm going to see his grave. I'm going to make sure this really bad person was around. And there's a monument to him. It's a small monument, but it makes you realize how terrible he was. And he didn't change. I don't care what he says. He didn't change.
No. No.
So I'm voting for 68 next time.
Okay.
Then you can do 72 because that would be McGovern and Nixon and all that. You could do a whole Theodore White series for kids.
David, I could put together a 1978, The Death of Disco, if you think you guys would want to give that some consideration.
When I bought the album, I bought an album many years before my children were born called Ethel Merman Does Disco, and I never lived it down.
You know, well, Sharon, do you two have any other thoughts you'd like to share? I mean, this could go on forever for me.
Yeah. Well, I do. I want to say, when I read more about the Grateful American Book Prize and also about the foundation, I felt like, and a little bit about you, David, I felt like the other thing that's always been important to me and sharing with people is how my family developed this whole concept of legacy and made it something that my brother David and I could latch on to in our adult years and try to pass that on to our children as well. And I felt that same way, David, with you and your work, because it felt like history has always been an important part of your family as well as art. So when you did this combination actual award, and sent it to me, I was really looking forward to receiving it because your mother had designed it. And I was like,
Right.
Again, I'm always looking at family legacies. And so it was so beautiful to me. And, I cherished it and I showed it to my mom, and it's far more beautiful in person than it can be on a website. But
Right.
Thank you
Right.
for that.
Oh, you're welcome.
Well, thank you both. And this is the point, Sharon. I ask you to promise to come back to us someday when you have something to talk to us. We'd love to have you.
Great. Okay. Thank you. I'd love to.
And you, in my mind, are an American treasure. So, with that being said, this has been Justin Case, Sharon Robinson, and David Bruce Smith sharing and preserving American history. Thanks for joining us. Remember, additional information and links are provided in this video's Read More. Please be sure to subscribe to this channel to stay connected, and please connect with the Grateful American Foundation. And to make the time to read Sharon's book, Child of a Dream, and always remember to stand back. We're not sure how big this channel is going to get.
It's just 36 ounces. Just a 35-inch piece of wood that's been cut, sanded, and shaped for a specific task. To hit a ball. But one man used it for so much more. One man used it as a pointer to guide us to our better selves. He used it as a club to fight injustice. And a walking stick in the march for equality. See the whole story at the Jackie Robinson Museum.
This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Way down in the valley, I'm gonna let it shine, whoa, way down in the valley. I'm gonna let it shine, way down in the valley. I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Up there in the mountains, I'm gonna let it shine, whoa, up there in the mountains. I'm gonna let it shine, up there in the mountains. I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine, whoa, everywhere I go. I'm gonna let it shine, everywhere I go. I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine, whoa, this little light of mine. I'm gonna let it shine, this little light of mine. I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine, whoa, this little light of mine. I'm gonna let it shine, this little light of mine. I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine.